too. What's up, man?
Good to see you. I enjoyed seeing your trips to France. Good place.
It really helps to have relatives over there.
I was gonna say, you're blessed to have kids.
For me, it's my heritage, so I'm obsessed with
And that is really important. And all I know is the older we get, the more obsessed we should get.
Well, I am getting more obsessed with it. I'm actually planning a trip to go see some other cousins that I'm trying to see just by myself. I have to translate and just go places where you don't go.
It's important for you and your family to see where the roots are.
I took 3 of my grandchildren for the first time this summer in France so that they can see what it's like. And they went, I took them
They'll
to my
always
dad's
remember
hometown,
that.
took them to my dad's hometown, et cetera. So,
You don't know where you're going to see Kelly and Bernadette former county commissioner. Now has a big blueberry operation.
I think Facebook also recommends friends for me. Now I know who you are, aside from blueberries.
blueberries, and my kids do a cidery winery.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna take a tour. I'm actually gonna take a tour to one.
Yeah, I've seen Will out
Yeah,
there a number
yeah.
of times.
I've had some friends that actually came
Up
out
there
here.
sipping.
Will is, you're a regular, Will. Easy. No, I know
I've been around for a while.
Huh? We do. The principal and assistant principal reception. I made 2. I'm actually gonna be hitting Greenville. I got a meeting in Greenville at 1 o'clock. So there's no way I'm gonna be back in Greenville.
Championship game.
Oh, okay. Did they put the grandma here? Okay. My granddaughter was actually tonight. We're doing this concert at Stanford Mother People, so I had to miss that.
You're playing
Circuit Complex. Okay. Who are they playing? Okay.
They won't. They've been playing. They start when they get their diapers on. Here it is, the voice of God.
Yes, Dr. Brandon, I'll stay. You don't have to worry about me.
All right.
She's not coming to
No,
Texas.
she's in Texas. All right.
We can spread out.
All right. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rule of Order will be used to conduct meetings. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence at each meeting held at a school site, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions of the meeting. At this point, we will take a moment of silence. All right. As chair, I will take a point of privilege before we get started. As some of the audience may know, and the board, we had a superintendent that left, and we had to find an interim And we had Dr. Bridges that was willing to come in and take hold of some difficult situations that we had going on. And I just wanted to first thank you on behalf of the board. We got you a card and a basket. We're basket girls.
Oh.
And in the basket, there is a woodworking from Cedar Ridge. Our CTE class did produce of North Carolina. We wanted you to have something that was part of the school system. And I just wanted to thank you for all your guidance, your help, your insight, and, you know, giving us a lot of straight talk when we need it. And I just wanted to say thank you. All right.
So I'd like to note.
No speech?
You want to say a few
No
words?
speech?
No, I'm good.
A man, a few words.
For the record, since 1973, I think Dr. Bridges will be number 19 / interim superintendent / superintendent. So there've been 19 people sitting in that chair since 1973. So we would hope that, where's
There
Dr.
she
Felder?
is.
That you stick around here for a while, okay? Because we can't go through these 2 or 3 year changes all the time.
All right. All right, with that, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There is no public comment today. We will move on to consent agenda.
Move the approval of consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. We'll move to the audit report.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
Good evening.
Hi. As you're aware, North Carolina General Statute requires that we have our accounts and the accounts of our individual schools audited after the close of each fiscal year. Our independent certified public accountants, Anderson, Smith, and White, have audited the financial statements of the government activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund. Dale Smith, the partner of Anderson, Smith, and White, is here this evening to provide you a report of the fiscal year 2019 final audit of the Orange County Schools Board of Education. And I'm going to turn it over to him now so he can walk us through that.
Evening.
Board members, Dr.
Good
Bridges,
Good evening.
you were doing well. I think everyone should have a copy of the audit report, I guess an electronic PDF copy.
Yes.
And just a few pages I'll go through tonight. I like to always point out that on page 1 of the report is the audit opinion letter. And it is a clean, unmodified report, which is what you want to receive. That lets you know that we feel all the amounts in the report are reliable and free from any sort of material misstatement. And if you would, turn to page 12 of the report, and we'll look at the district's fund balances as of June 30th, 2019. And page 12 shows the balance sheet of the district's governmental funds. So basically includes everything except child nutrition and child care, and we'll look at those on separate pages after we finish here. And we'll be focusing on the first column, which is your general fund. And up at the top, the district had cash and cash equivalents at June 30th, 2019 of $6,585,523, and total assets of $6,605,053. And total liabilities, they're in the middle of $1,914,669. And your assets minus liabilities gives you your fund balance, which is the next to last number in that column, of $4,690,384. And that amount is made up of the 3 numbers you see above there. You've got a restricted for stabilization by state statute of $19,530. And you had an amount that was assigned to balance your fiscal year 1920 budget of $1,833,020. And that leaves you with an unassigned fund balance of $2,605,053. $840,534. And your other fund balances as of June 30th, 2019, the other special revenue fund had a fund balance of $2,923,323. And capital outlay had a fund balance of $1,557,357. And the special revenue fund balance, that next to last column, that's really your individual schools fund balance. The total schools combined had an ending fund balance of $707,734. And overall, for a district this size, I think the fund balances of the district are at a good level. Anyone have any questions at all about the fund balances? Okay, if not, let's turn to page 61 and we'll look at the school nutrition program. Give y'all a minute to scroll through and find
Thank
it.
you. If I go too fast, mine will go black. Page
61.
okay.
It's a very thorough report.
Okay, there's 61.
Everybody got it?
All right.
Yes.
We got it.
He's getting there, he's on 57.
Getting close.
Oop, you passed it, Matthew. You're on,
61.
he's at 61, that says 63.
That's page 60.
There's some preface.
That's right. We got it.
Y'all got it?
We got it. We
Okay.
did.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Ready to
and,
go.
and again, this schedule shows the revenues and the expenses of the child nutrition program for the year ended June 30, 2019. And we'll be focusing on the middle column, and it'll be the last line that has 3 columns, is your net change in fund balance. And the program had a profit for the year of $61,506. And this is an increase of about $10,000 over the profit that was reported at June 30th, 2018, which was around $52,000. And I think the program's been profitable now for 4 years in a row, which is great to see. I think if you go back before that, they were losing money pretty steadily. I think for at least 3 years before that, they were losing money every year. So, it's great to see that turnaround in this program.
Well, when you've got somebody now who knows what they're doing, that's why it's in the positive, and I think Ms. Green deserves all the praise for that.
Do not hear?
Doing a great
Yeah,
job.
she's
Unlike-
right there. She's right
Oh,
there.
okay.
Unlike our
Thank you.
sister system in the southern end of the county that contracts child nutrition services out, we keep it in-house, but we're very gifted to have Valerie Green as our director.
Absolutely.
And the program's cash balances increased $47,000 last year to end the year at $616,000. So, I think overall the program is operating soundly and in good financial shape as of June 30th.
You audit how many school systems in the state?
Our firm as a whole audits, it's over 50. So,
And would you say the majority of the child nutrition programs and other systems that you audit are in as good a shape as our system?
we've got quite a few that are struggling. I'll
Okay,
put it that
but
way.
we're not struggling, we're doing very well. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yep.
Thank you.
If you would go just one more page forward, page 62, and we'll look at the child care program. And this page is set up just like the child nutrition one. And we'll be looking at that same row, which is the net change in fund balance. And you can see this program had a profit for the year of $89,151. And in the previous year, the program had reported a profit of $43,000. So you had an improvement over the previous year of about $46,000. This program has also now been profitable 2 years in a row, had been losing money for the previous 3 years. So this program's also shown a good turnaround. And cash balances in this program increased $90,000 and ended the year at $523,000. And I think this program's also operating soundly and in good financial shape at June 30th. Anyone have any questions on these two
And
programs?
who's in charge of that program, Mr. Atherton?
The child care,
Mm-hmm.
it's currently open.
It's currently open.
And the last part of the report.
Mr. Lewis.
Mr.
The
Lewis,
director.
Mr. Lewis he's the director.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You mean
Mr.
the
Lewis,
interim.
would you stand up to be recognized?
Yes, the interim, please, yes.
I think it's important. I think it's important to recognize Mr. Lewis too, because that's a reflection of hard work when you end up in the positive like this.
In the last part of the report, and we won't go to any specific pages, but starting on page 63 is the first of 3 letters that we issue related to the compliance portion of our audit. And we're required by state and federal law to audit the state and federal revenues that the district receives, which is the majority of the funding that y'all get. And we have to perform a significant amount of payroll testing, general disbursement testing, and various specific compliance tests to ensure that those funds have been spent in accordance with the various rules that the state and federal agencies attach to those monies. And we're happy to report that all 3 of these letters are clean, unmodified reports, meaning there were no question calls, no findings, and no internal control matters reported related to this testing. And, again, basically these letters let you know that we think that the district's funds have been spent in accordance with the budgets that y'all approved.
And that's all thanks to Ms. Rhonda.
And with that said, we did issue one separate letter with just one recommendation related to purchasing. I think y'all, did they get a copy of that letter, electronic copy? Well, I'll just go over what we had there. We noted just a couple of small items related to purchasing where the purchase order was not submitted before the expenditure was incurred. So basically, there was really no kind of problem, given that funds were in the budget for those expenditures. But we have started really emphasizing everywhere that we go that it's very important for those that have responsibility for purchasing to be sure and issue the purchase order of finance. Let finance approve it, finance can then encumber those funds, and then they can approve the purchase, and they will always know how much money's left to be spent. If folks are out there spending the money and they don't first notify finance that they're wanting to spend it, then finance will not know how much money's left to be spent. And that kind of thing's not a problem until something goes wrong, and we did have a district last year where an EC director had overspent by around $400,000 doing this exact thing. And so we have really started emphasizing everywhere that we go that it's very important to follow rules. And if you follow the rules, then you shouldn't have problems like that.
Any questions from any board members? I have one.
Okay.
On page 4, there's a generic statement in there. I assume it's generic. It says overtime increases or decreases in the board's net positions are indicators of whether its financial position is improving or deteriorating. Or when you say you do the stress test, are you looking at our projection of net hires, or I'm curious how that relates to some of the stress tests that you were talking about.
When you refer to really what this is getting at, if you turn the page over to page 5 and look at the you've got the net position of the district shown in that table 1. Okay, and what this is getting at is, has the district's net position, which is the total dollars that it has it
Right.
increased or decreased? Basically, what we're looking at is, did cash go up or down?
Right.
And in y'all's case last year, your net position increased, and so
Yeah, my curiosity was, when you said you were doing the stress test,
the stress.
you were talking about I guess right before we looked at the final, you were talking about a financial stress test you did?
Checking payroll and items coming in.
Oh, look.
Yeah, do you do that against this, or how's that done? I was just
Well,
curious.
that's done looking at what y'all budgeted. So
Okay.
Yeah, we compare to what y'all said could be spent,
Mhm.
and make sure y'all didn't, that management didn't spend more than what, the board authorized to be spent.
Okay, so it's really confirming our net position of where we're at,
That's-
is what
that's
you're doing.
right.
Okay, I was trying to put the dots together to see how that fit in. Fine.
And I just wanted to add, I know, knowing Rhonda, I know that on the one letter that there was the thing we can improve on, that we're already over, putting in place corrective measures so that that's taken care of. Okay.
And again,
Okay, Dr.
This is, what year are we in this audit cycle with these folks right now?
The 3rd year,
And we're in a 5-year cycle, is that right?
5 years, yes, sir. I believe that's correct.
Because for those of us who were at the law conference in Asheville, we heard this admonition very clearly that you should look very carefully, knowing full well that just a handful of firms, maybe 2 or 3, that do this kind of work. Because you guys have got half the LEAs in this state, more than half.
yeah.
You got about 65% of them.
What we focus on.
Well, that's what you do a good job, that's why, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with, if you go back and have the same firm again, but you go through a selection process, knowing full well, and they were clear about that. There's just 2 or 3 companies that offer the service now. Do you do individual audits or groups affiliated with schools but not part of the school system?
Do some.
Booster clubs, athletic booster clubs, band boosters?
Yeah, we do some of that.
You do some of that. Now, we went ahead and changed something in our budget. We're now having an internal auditor working in your operation, Rhonda? You got somebody on board doing that?
Yes, sir.
Good.
By policy, we audit them every year. I think this was to give more guidance and review before and ahead of that, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
I like that. That is so warm and satisfying. Guidance and review. That's in lieu of jail time? Guidance and review.
All right, any other questions from anyone? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, our next, we're gonna have the Executive Director of the Arts Center. It's,
If you need to put it there.
Someday if we get enough money from the county commissioners, we'll go wireless.
it's called proximity.
Whatever it is, I don't care what you call
I don't have
it.
anything to do with
So they have
it.
anything to do with
I ain't got no
it?
dog in that
She
fight.
says proudly.
Well, to get the proximity, for us, we never even got the wireless.
You know,
Anyway, well, I'll just start
It's a group
too
sport.
while it's setting up. Some of you know me from my past life, but I'll introduce myself. I'm Bernadette Pelletier, and I am now the chair of the board of the Arts Center.
Oh.
And that's why I'm here, and then there will be others who will say something, but I just want to make an introduction about the Arts Center. And the Arts Center was started in 1974, about 45 years ago, with just the art school. And it's an arts education primarily organization, which, having been a county commissioner and being very supportive of education, is kind of continuing the work, you know, that the arts education is very important, as you all know, to help children learn. We are the largest employer of artists in the county. Last year, we had 165 artists who were employed. As you remember, we have our summer camp, we have a lot of different programs. And I dare say that some of the teachers in both school systems here in Orange County supplement their incomes, which we know a lot of teachers need to do, by working at the Arts Center. We are, whoops. I want to say that overall, we serve 100,000 people, which is a large number of people, as you can tell. All the schools, you do have arts programs. We are the largest provider of arts programming in the county. We served 5,500 students last year in arts programming. And before I introduce Dan, I want to say I really appreciate the collaboration between the school system and the Arts Center, which is a nonprofit, because we really have a lot of the same goals in mind about providing that education to children. And of course, we also do serve adults. And so this is Dan Mayer, who's the executive director, and he's going to talk some more about our programs and our collaborations with you all.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. We've had this program for a long time, but we've really not had the chance to sort of bring it to you. And we just wanted to provide you with a little bit of background on this program. This program has had several names, but for the last few years, it's been called the Artist in Residence Program. And it provides a residency in the classroom in every Title I classroom in Orange County schools. So it serves New Hope, Central, Eflin Cheeks, and now most recently Grady Brown. It started at Central and then expanded to Grady Brown just in the last 2 years. So what this program does is it provides 5 days of in-class, the equivalent of 5 days of in-classroom instruction by an artist in residence, and then it's tied to a field trip to the Art Center to see a performance. And that's all part of this program. It operates year-round. It serves 1,100 kids each year, 1,300 kids each year, and it's been in existence for 11 years. So each year we provide a range of artists who work in music, drama, movement, dance, storytelling, poetry, visual arts, puppetry, clay. It's really a full range of arts. It's not just visual arts or dramatic arts. And the performances, as you'll hear, are not just theater. It's theater, music, dance. It can take a lot of different forms. And it really provides this important opportunity for kids to connect to the arts, and kids also who learn differently to learn using the arts as a tool and resource. This program is provided by the Art Center to the school district and has been there operating for, as I say, for a long time, and keeps getting sort of built more and more into the curriculum. So I wanted to give one or two examples of programs. Virginia Queen Danford, who is the coordinator for the program, and has been with the Art Center for over a decade, and been coordinating this program for the last 4 years.
Yes, thank you, and I will continue that. I just want to, I'm going to refer to these here shortly, if you just want to take one and pass it around. You may or may not want to use that, but yes, I'm Virginia, and I have been working in specifically arts education now for 23 years, starting in New York City for a while. And I have been a part of this program since the beginning as a teaching artist for many years and as a coordinator for the last 4. I am extremely passionate about specifically arts education because I have witnessed hands-on thousands of students' lives enriched by the arts. And I mean not just getting a class in art. I mean more specifically about students getting to work with a professional artist who's also a teacher, and they connect their art form through different ways, creative ways of learning. And so our template in setup, where, as Dan said, and I'm gonna be a little more specific with it, you want me to do it? You want to do it? Okay, you can do it. Is set up where we have five days. I think let me
Okay.
take over. Yeah, just so
Let you
I
drive the car.
can refer to it, so I'm gonna go back just a little. Yeah. So as Dan said, and I'll be a little more specific, and I could talk about it for an hour, but I will just touch upon it, so I know we don't have that. The students get 5 days with a teaching artist, and they also get to choose a school show. So one of the things that I sent around to show you is our school show season. And so we've had 2 shows so far, 2 performances, and you'll see up there the Children's Theater. Charlotte did the true story of the 3 Little Pigs. And Mike Wiley on Friday just did a performance of Tired Souls, which revolved around the civil rights movement, specifically the time of the Montgomery bus boycott. And here's a picture from the Children's Theater of Charlotte, and then there's Mike Wiley. And so what I would like to do is I would like to highlight a couple of the teaching artists. We have a core of 7 teaching artists. I'm one of them. But I thought I would highlight a couple of the artists who actually worked in connection to one of the recent performances. So the way our template is set up specifically is, in the beginning, the teachers of each grade level, the lead grade level teacher will meet with their team, and they will choose one of these shows. Once they choose and they let us know, that's the field trip that they work towards bringing the students to. I then will connect a teaching artist with that grade level, and they will schedule their residency, in that time frame of the performance. And then it's our job as teaching artists, and I gave you an example of a lesson plan so you can see kind of the work that we put into it. The teaching artist's job is we come into the planning session with the teachers. That's the beginning of the process. And we are already prepared, having looked at, say we're working with second grade, the second grade curriculum, the core curriculum and the essential standards, both. We look at our art form and we get ideas of how can we bring our work and help them teach what they're already teaching in creative ways, to enhance the curriculum, to engage the students, and hopefully, which this happens all of the time, give some students, because every student learns differently, a way to shine maybe in a way they never have, and teachers to learn more about them, and for them to become empowered, and for teachers to learn more tools. There's so many layers here of this kind of work. But we also make sure that we collaborate with the teachers, because some teachers say, we're working on this unit in science, can you work with that unit? So we'll work very directly with that. Maybe it's about balance and motion, or just story. So depending on what the teachers want, our job is to collaborate with the teachers and then put our lessons together from that. And also prepare them so they have a more full experience of the show, and sometimes directly connect the show, use the themes of the show or what the story's about. So I want to talk to you about Terry Shear. He's a puppeteer, visual artist, and muralist. You may have heard of him. He's also known as Chiquetto. And he's been performing since he was very young. He works with paper hand puppet a lot. And he recently did a music video with, Missy Elliott and Farrell. That was something that he did. But even more important, this is him with his son here. Here's a nice picture of Terrish. But even more importantly, he just completed a residency with the kindergartners at Eflin Cheeks. And a little boy would hardly let him leave. He started crying. He didn't want him to leave so bad. But the teachers really wanted to work on parts of the story with these little 5- and 6-year-olds. And so they reviewed parts of the story in their 5 days. They developed a plan and designed. So I'm going to show you a few pictures. Designed. They had lessons in, let me go back. Yeah, I'm going too fast. And puppeteering and how you actually use a puppet and maneuver them, and so they explored that process. And then they took their plan and they actually put on an entire puppet show on the last day, and then he edited a video for the school as they got to perform. And so they got to go through that whole process. There's a really cool puppet. Now he uses all recycled materials, so this was, some ones that he brought in as well. But it was a super great experience. And then more recently, Mara Garcia, she's a Native American woman who has started with our program this year. She's a dancer, choreographer, has her own dance company. And she focuses on, or she is powered by the desire to perpetuate ancestral knowledge, certainly, respecting the living earth and further social justice. She uses power of stories, and she uses narrative driven by her choreography. Now, Mara, there's her as a answer. She's pretty wonderful. But I, again, will focus on her residency. So she just completed a residency with Central fourth grade in connection to the show on Friday that we saw. Her connections were a little bit more indirect. They didn't necessarily study the civil rights movement. They reviewed it over about a day or two, but they connected their own stories and their own voices, and so they used that theme of connection. And so she kind of put this together, and the lesson plan that I sent around is her specific lesson plan for that. I just wanted to tie that in there. And if you look up here, I mean, this was on her lesson plan, but she, the students learned so much history during this time. And then through creative exercises, they got to explore movement and tell their own stories. It was a very moving experience. And one of the connections I wanted to say specifically was that she gave the kids the opportunity to share their own stories and voices through dance and movement activities. And the main focus was identity and place. This is just two examples. We have 24 residencies a year. And I can't thank you enough for that support. I wish we could give it to everybody in the community, of course. It really has influenced the kids' lives daily and opened doors to more learning because of confidence, among other things. I just wanted to finish it on, even though we have 7 core artists, we often bring in a guest artist. This was another one with Maura. I forgot to show you. Yeah. But Jackie Shelton Green, who we loved, we were thrilled this past spring. She came in as a guest artist with our program. And I just thought I'd ask her because she used to go to Eklund Cheeks Elementary when she was younger. And she's obviously the North Carolina Poet Laureate, and I thought, let me just see if she would be interested. And she said, I would love to come and teach a residency. So she worked with the first graders, and you'll see in this picture, this is one of the things that they did, they made story dolls, where they all each got to tell their own story as they were learning, at different levels, writing skills and how to put stories together, and also what poetry is. But anyway, I could talk on, but thank you. This program is going very well, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
And in conclusion, we just wanted to thank you. We wanted to thank you for your partnership in this and let you know that if there are questions, I know our time tonight is short, but if there are questions, please do contact us. We're really looking for opportunities to shed a light on the great works the schools are doing in partnership with us and the work that we're doing in the schools. So we appreciate this opportunity to brag a little and talk about it.
I just wanted to say thank you for coming. This is the first time in my 12 years on this board that we've actually had a presentation of the wonderful work you guys are doing in our schools. And I had no idea. So thank you for bringing this to us, and Dr. Bridges, while you were here as interim, I thank you. This is important stuff. Now, Jackie Shelton Green, her children went through Orange High School. That's where I met her many years ago. An amazing woman, homegrown talent, okay, that's recognized across the country. Thank you, because this is the kind of stuff, I hate to tell you, we as board members sometimes don't get to hear. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, thank God these people came here tonight and told us what's going on, so I appreciate it.
Well, I thank you, and I just wanted to add one extra thing because it happened today. I'm also doing a residency right now revolving around the show that was on Friday, and many of the kids did a little writing component, and they added, we were working on the I Have a Dream speech, and they shared their own dreams. And because we work a lot with respect and community in the classroom as part of just a foundation for all of the residencies, the class had really created quite an ensemble of trust. And this was at Eklund Cheeks with the 4th graders. And the stories that, literally the stories, they weren't just dreams, some of them were stories they shared, but it was just all across the board, and it was just so moving to hear them. And they also acted out the Rosa Parks bus ride, but the stories, and that just left me, and then I rushed and got together and came over here. So thank you, because it is important work, and I appreciate your support.
You can tell we're passionate about doing this.
You are.
And we also know that the next Jackie Shelton Green and really artistic leaders are in the schools now.
That's
So
right.
we want to provide these opportunities so that they can sort of continue to grow as individuals and artists. So thank you. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry, please excuse my
Yeah.
contact malfunction and run out for a moment. Did you say this is only in Title I schools?
Yes, those schools listed, the elementary schools.
Okay, okay.
Because it's privately funded by a foundation, and that's our agreement with the
Oh, sure,
foundation.
no, I totally understand that.
But we'd
I
love
just-
to be able to expand this.
That's sort of where I was going with this, so maybe we can
We'd love to talk more about
talk
that.
more. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Budget committee.
Yes,
You
but
got a lot, Matthew.
Write it down, Matthew. You're the chair. You're supposed to be writing it down.
Thank you all again for
Chiseled
coming
in his
and taking the
brain.
time. These are the things we love to hear about in the partnerships. The school systems can't do it alone either, and this just gives a great opportunity for kids to get the experiences that we can't provide, so thank you.
Amen.
All right, Mr. Conley?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hope you're well. We have with us tonight our secondary principals to present their school improvement plans. We will start with our middle schools. In particular, we will start with Dr. Jeff Rock.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me out. So I'll start off by saying, in the last 3 years, we have either exceeded or met growth, and we have a ton of work to do. We see gaps in our reading and math. Interestingly enough, our gaps in science a lot tighter, but we need to see that in all subjects. Our EL population, we need to get more kids not only exiting, but having the support necessary to continue to grow for the years following exiting the program. We need to increase on what we're doing with parents. We need to increase on the supports that we're giving to kids in their emotional needs, some of the mental health services. There is a ton to do. So we're happy with growth, and we're going to continue with that. But I just want to talk a little bit about some of our goals for this year. So really, if I were to phrase this, I'm going to say, it can kind of go into the phrase that we want to measure, how we measure us is how we consistently welcome you to school. And if I were to break that down for you, so if I look at what our goals are, our 3 goals really deal with classroom management, some of the routines that we put in place, our SEL, our social emotional learning, the supports that we put in place on that, and then our parent supports. So in terms of welcoming, what we're looking for is how we bring community members and families into the building. So our counseling department is working on developing newsletters that'll go out with each report card on resources that are available, some learning opportunities that they can do for developing their own children emotionally, what resources are already out in the community, that'll be in English and Spanish. We're asking that our exploratory teachers contacting 3 students personally weekly to call home. We're trying to avoid the email and actually making personal contacts. For every child being contacted, the parents being contacted twice personally by their core teachers each year. To make sure that our front signage, when people enter the building, that it's bilingual, and that we're welcoming. We have a high Spanish-speaking population, making sure that we're welcoming those families coming in. We want to make sure, another goal that we're putting in place is for 2 parent nights, including a club day where parents can come out for clubs. Does not include our support nights that we put in place for our 6th grade families. So we have some Keeping It Real series that we do for our families to help them in the middle school and what that's like for 6th grade. And then we also do some Spanish-speaking nights for some of our families and learning how to best support our Spanish-speaking needs. We also did set up a September game night where we really we had wanting to learn how to get into Power School as a parent. We had board games set up, teachers were doing those, we had food trucks, we had activities set up, and it really was just trying to make the school a more welcoming place. The other thing that our teachers are really trying to work on this year and goal-wise is utilizing our digital tools better, especially in Canvas and Google Classroom, and moving away from relying mainly on a hard copy planner to a digital, and how do we develop that understanding with their kids and how they keep themselves organized. And then we also are looking at community supports, and so one of the ways is looking through, as we're developing our integrated units, on the tasks that we're asking them to do at the end of these units, on are there community members or leaders that could help design the tasks that we want our kids to do. If we're trying to give them real world problems, look for the problems that are going on in Orange County, find out how they solved it, and then figure out a way to tie it into our curriculum piece as a way for checking on mastery on some of these larger concepts. We also have been using our, looking to career explorations and how we can bring families into the school there. In terms of the U component of this, that's really with the mentoring. It's really looking at the uniqueness of our kids and developing more of that SEL piece. And so with 6th grade, we've expanded our exploratory teachers, each taking on students during their lunch period to mentor them. Teachers are actually running monthly activities with all of the students. And these students are chosen that are minority students in the building that are not behavior problems coming in from the elementary schools, but ones that could use an extra hand. And so we ask our elementary principals for who they would recommend, and then we set up a connection piece for them. We also set up an 8th grade male group for our African American students through a UNC partnership. And we also set up a multi-grade level Hispanic male group through Volunteers for Youth. The reason why we're targeting those areas, we had 95% of our referrals coming from males. And so we got to figure out to steer them in the right direction and figuring out those programs to connect that. In terms of in the classroom, we're asking our teachers each week now to incorporate a component of social emotional learning, highlighting that in their lesson plans, and really not only just performing it, but actually debriefing with kids as to what the purpose is behind that so that we're developing that. We've asked for one team building monthly, where they will do, each team for middle school will do a larger team building activity that can take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours. And 6th grade really was doing it once a week for the first month, really just to get that connection for students. We're also doing restorative circles weekly right now, and working on getting some training with Val Hansen through level 2 to move it past. So right now we're in the restorative of how do we learn to communicate better and connect it to content. Our next level, and once we get more training on that, is how do we train staff members to utilize that tool for handling discussions in the class when it comes to more discipline needs, so that we're utilizing it truly what it's for its intention. We're also working with our PBIS team on trying to develop a flow chart, major and minor incidences, what that looks like, how we're trying to coordinate all these things. If this, then this, have we tried these things? But really trying to triangulate our growth piece. And then putting our AVID strategies monthly into our Bulldog Academy, so that we go through the keys to success in our AVID strategies monthly. And then our BARK squad, which is an 8th grade mentoring group, goes out to the 6th graders each month to perform, to do some leadership activities with them. And so this last week, they just worked with the kids on organization. Why is it valuable? When it talks to the school component of welcoming you to school. So for the school component, really what we're working on is some of the academic pieces. And we're working on developing that language arts is not just a language arts teacher's job, it's all of ours. And so our science and social studies teachers are extremely focused on writing right now. We are doing book study on the writing revolution. We are incorporating a lot of those strategies into our classrooms and doing formative assessments on writing that has to do with content writing in those areas, and then trying to get them to the point of small group instruction on developing student discourse. There are correlations between, as a student's writing level goes up, so does their reading level. And so we're trying to utilize each subject for their purpose. In terms of weekly check-ins on teams, we've set up weekly check-ins where we're looking at more on the week work completion end and keeping kids on task. But we've set up homework haven in the morning and then crunch lunches that are opportunities for students that need extra support from teachers, so they're giving their time to offer additional tutoring times for them. In our ESL, to work on some of the needs that we have in there, we just started this year on a 3-year cycle working with our science teachers to really develop co-teaching in those areas. And so for the next 3 years, in 6th and 7th grade, they'll be focusing on science and ELA in 8th grade. We cluster those students together so that we really can, hopefully as we're getting our teachers to understand some of the needs and strategies, that as the ESL teacher moves on, those strategies stay. And so that's why it's a 3-year commitment that we're putting into those subjects. We're looking at increasing minorities in our Math 1 and English 1. And really, we know what the regulations are with that, but we want to go beyond that to really try and increase the supports and opportunities to our students. In Bulldog Academy, we have a daily intervention right now that's 40 minutes long, and we've been using our Ames Web data, EOG, and other data sources for intervention and enrichment time. Depending on your level of support need, it can go from the more prescriptive programs like a Hill Rap or Wilson to more of a enrichment opportunity like advanced robotics, advanced art. And then we're increasing the consistency for our reading and math on workshop model. So we started with Lucy Calkins last year, and we're really trying to push more on developing that workshop model for all of our courses. That includes our English 1 and Math 1, and really trying to get to, for me, the workshop model really gets to targeting what students need in the type of instruction that we provide. And so we're trying to get those pieces together as well. So for us, 3 goals: welcoming you to school. And why we say the word consistency is because that's really the target of the whole thing. The plan is great, but what we found, and we've already started talking about it in leadership last week, was we're seeing differences in the way that our kids are communicating and the way that they're handling some of their discipline issues. And when we talk about it, it's because the teachers and the staff are being consistent in the implementation. So when we said the kids didn't know it, it's because we weren't being consistent. What we're finding is that the consistency that we're giving towards developing them as people is showing in their discipline. Our next step then is the consistency in which we're targeting kids to show growth in their academics. So that's our 3 goals. Any questions?
I have a question.
Shoot.
When you just said that, is it shoot?
Oh, sorry. Yes, ma'am. No.
You said shoot. It was like,
Wrong shoot.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you said you're looking to increase minorities in the math. How do you plan to do that?
Sure. So what we do is we take 2 years of integrated course data, and each year we're reanalyzing that. And then we start with how many kids we can maximize in those classes. At a certain point, we go by scores.
Okay.
Stop at that point, and then the rest of the time we're looking more through, are we making sure that we're increasing all of our minority groups in the, and so at some point you have to change over what you're doing percentage-wise to look more towards other needs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hillary?
First of all, wow, you have a lot going on.
I know, and I was writing it down. I was
I know,
like,
like,
geez.
oh.
Really exciting
Cool.
stuff I'm hearing. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Sure.
And I heard you mention restorative circles
Yes.
and sort of being in the maybe early phases of
Correct.
sort of implementing it, and but it sounds like it's successful in some ways. I'm assuming that's part of what you meant with character
ma'am.
development. And I'm wondering if because I'm not a part of the training and what is going on in the discussion of how this stuff is getting implemented, I wonder if it's working in a direction to where it may also connect with the curriculum. For example, like if there's a US history class that's particularly difficult to digest, would you maybe have a circle to finish that class, sort of a thing? Is that something that's
So actually they do
discussed?
that as part of restorative circles is, it's really targeting through social studies right now. I think it's a perfect place to do it.
That's perfect, yeah.
And it connects to content. So all of our subjects can do a circle around their content. There's things that can allow for perspective or thoughts in different ways in any content.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's giving that opportunity and freedom to allow that to happen. So that really is at this level is really what we're trying to target with that.
And do you see that showing up, like are teachers doing that often, talking about the content in their classrooms?
Every time.
Awesome.
Every time. So it
Okay,
begins in
that's
6th
exciting.
grade. A lot of the 6th grade stuff is, have you ever experienced bullying? What does it feel, what did it feel like?
Mhm.
Were you, what have been the biggest changes for you coming to middle school? As they develop, it switches over. 8th grade was having a discussion on the, whether to join, one group over another during the Civil War, and why would you think that way, and those types of discussions.
Excellent.
Which really was interesting.
Yeah.
The goal is, and again, this ties into our writing piece as well. So there are certain things that we want kids to be able to write through. Then now when we do these circles, we want to have them using some of these sentence stems even in their discussions so that they're verbalizing instead of in text language, complete thoughts.
140 characters.
Yes, exactly. Complete thoughts and trying to make that happen. So we may say, okay, use one of these 3 sentence stems, now tell me your thought. And really practicing that. Some of our coaches are actually using them at the end of the season and doing a restorative circle more as an appreciation circle. And so now, because the kids are so used to this in classrooms, they circle up, talk to us about the season, and you know, by the end, you got a bunch of kids crying because they're all sad but so thankful for everything that happened and taking the time to make that happen.
Really cool. Thank you. It's great to hear.
Dr. Halkias?
Just a couple of things.
Yes, sir.
Are all of your teaching positions filled now with certified folks?
No.
Which ones are not?
So I have 3 positions that are open. I have a social studies position, and the person will be starting November 4th. In 7th grade, I have a 6th grade math position with the person starting December 3rd. And I just recently ended up with a 7th grade social studies position, and that's currently posted. Yeah, I know.
No,
Working on that.
I guess I don't understand when people get into a new school year, and then they decide they're gonna leave for whatever reason. I know there are some cases that you can't help. But, you know, if people don't wanna stick with the program, they are doing an injustice, not only to themselves, but they're doing a bigger one to the kids
Right.
and the parents. And I have never, in all my years of being in this business, understood that.
It's changing. Our thoughts on that are changing. In my head,
For the better or worse?
for our kids, for the worse. For people's individual needs, for the better. But for the kids, I don't think
See,
having
I'm
people come and go.
focused on kids.
That's
I'm
right.
tired of focusing in on adults, all right?
Yes, sir.
We're supposed to be focusing in on students.
Correct,
That has to be our primary focus.
correct.
I know that's your primary focus.
Well, and I don't, there are things that come up in people's lives.
I understand that.
It
I'm
does.
old enough to
I know,
understand that.
yeah.
But I'm also old enough to understand when you sign on in an education capacity, you sign on big time.
Yes, sir.
And as somebody told me 50 years ago, it's missionary work to a significant degree.
I'll be here till June. Past that, but I'll tell you till at least till June. I'm not
Well, I
leaving.
appreciate your honesty. Second point.
Don't leave us in.
No.
No.
Second point is this, knowing full well that Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act and everything else, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
ties you guys up with all kinds of ribbons.
Yes, sir.
And capturing kids' hearts, some
Yes.
people were doing that 40 years ago.
Yes, sir.
We just didn't know it was called capturing kids' hearts.
Yes, sir.
And then the feds came in and said you had to black out all of the narrative found in cumulative folders because it was illegal for teachers to be making comments. But you're doing something interesting. You're reaching out to elementary principals, asking for their assistance to highlight somebody who needs extra attention when they get to you.
Yes, sir.
That's commendable. Now, having served 2 years at a junior high, I can fully understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
My other 15 were at a high school.
Gotcha.
So I was caught in the middle too. So are the high school people reaching out to you?
So that's an ultimate goal. So my,
Oh, but it's not in place right
not
now.
in place right now.
Well, for whoever can hear this, if you don't take advantage of what the folks at ALS understand, when this crew of kids is coming your way, you're missing a golden opportunity.
Now, I will say that in previous years since I've been here, the counseling department has done an excellent job helping to guide our kids through to the high school level. I don't think we do enough on the communication piece,
Okay.
on helping to target kids through. Past the initial, do they need a year-long course versus a semester? I really think for us, a good focus for us in a connection to high school is in the extracurricular piece. It's on the exploratories and how we can develop modes of thinking so that if they're given all this access. So our 6th grade does 9 weeks of all exploratories. 7th grade, they do a semester. I ask my 8th graders to pick a year-long elective so that they're getting into different thoughts, right? If I can reach more to the high school in terms of this kid's really into technology, here's a branch of technology that's all your coursework fits right there for you. If you're really into the arts and that was your year-long focus, here's the arts focus that then comes to you so that it helps branch out in terms of setting them up for future success.
Well, you're at a critical vantage point. You've got them coming to you on one side,
I know.
and you're sending them off on the other.
It's a great opportunity.
And you guys have got so much opportunity to help the final end product determine what it's gonna be.
Thank you.
And a lot of kids need help. And a lot of parents are working 2 or 3 jobs, not just one.
Yes, sir.
And getting everybody involved to play in the game is pretty challenging. But, you know, you've been challenging yourself since you've been here, in a positive way.
Oh, good. I was
You
wondering,
have-
really? Dr. H, come on now, brother.
I have watched you since you arrived. You are full of fire, you're full of enthusiasm, you've got vigor. It sounds like Dancing with the Stars. But you've been doing a great dance since you've been here, and it shows. Jeff and I wanted to say thank you for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
You're full of fire.
Mr.
I'm not gonna say. All right.
Don't lose the fire. Don't lose the fire.
Mr. Roberts?
I'm a follow-up on part of what Dr. Hackio said in the Stevens, on the math one, because you're saying that you're working with the elementary schools to identify students.
Yes.
That with a little extra help.
Yes.
Can take a big step forward. And then you're also saying you're trying to get more into math one. But it's almost a little bit too late to get them in math one in that 8th grade year.
So that's a perfect question, I'll answer that for you. So in 6th grade, we did away with 6+. I don't have 6+ in reading or math. There are 2 units that the kids are missing. It matches about 3 weeks of curriculum. During Bulldog Academy, during the final 9 weeks, our AIG teacher will take clusters of kids that have been performing in 6th grade, actually over what we would put in a 7th grade plus class, to try and get as many kids those units as possible, to give as many students the opportunity to, if they're performing and know this stuff and can show it on the test piece, then we can get a better group of students. What was happening prior to that was, these kids would get identified in elementary, and they would just track right through, and it was like, how do you switch that mood, right? So we changed it to where 6th grade, we open it up, we give probably 85 to 90 students access to these units. For the kids that don't make 7th grade Math Plus, which is that middle year between the Math 1 course, then we front-loaded some curriculum for them. Okay, I'm good with that. And for those that we can get in, it does mean that I gotta increase class sizes on those plus classes. But I'll do it just to get as many kids that opportunity. We're not at a place yet where I can add another class, but eventually, do I wanna get there? Sure, sure do, because I don't believe middle school is the right time to segregate our kids.
All right, did you have anything to? Okay, so first of all, I'd just like to say your energy, as everybody said, is very contagious. I greatly appreciate the energy. I just had a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
One is I did notice, one of the actions, in fact, I think it's the last one, says increase funding in order to provide 0.5 additional ELS teachers in clustering science classes. Is that gonna be a request that's coming through to
No,
do
sir.
that, or are you?
So there was
handling
a 0.5 world language.
Mhm.
I did not have enough students that were requesting French.
Okay.
So I took that position to add an extra ESL so that I could cluster kids for co-teaching.
Okay, I just saw it and,
So
you know,
that was
wanted to make
utilizing
sure.
our money differently.
No, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir. No, we're good on that part. We use what we have. We're good.
The second one was, in your chart, there's an item talking about discipline.
Yes, sir.
Is significantly higher. And then the action, I'm guessing is from above, it says.
It doesn't correlate.
Right,
directly
right,
side to
so,
side.
I was, and I know you've talked about some of the methods, how are you tracking to that? I mean, we've got like, you know, the first little bit down, so are you seeing that your approach is effective, or?
So there are discipline things that I fall that end up requiring certain actions that I
Mhm.
can't get out of.
Yes.
Punching a student, I can't necessarily circle through that.
No, and the safety is important of all students.
However, I think we are doing a better job being thoughtful of either the forefront or the after effect of the discipline that we give. So it's either when they return, what's the supports that we put in place, or what's the discussion leading into it so that they know full well why, and not just, hey, I gotta go, this is, you punched, this is it. It's the talk through on the front end, understanding why, and you do the discipline with some back end piece when they come back in. What does that look like? Do we still have work on that? Yes. But I think that's where you're gonna see our growth piece is really on the way students, my hope is it's the amount of students that you see as your frequent flyer. That it may be that you got in trouble, because we all have
Yeah.
from time to time, but that it may be that you've truly learned and changed from that incident. And for us, it can't just be administration welcoming students back.
Right.
Right? When
They
you
need
paid your speeding
support.
ticket, it's done, we love you, come on, let's go.
Mhm.
And what does that feel like? So that's where I think you'll see our payoff.
Okay, a lot of the support when they come back.
Yes, sir.
The last one isn't explicitly in here, but kind of to your inclusion discussion.
Yes.
The sensory playground,
Yes, sir.
how's that looking?
So, thankfully, we have been in talks, Jake or Dr. Henry has really talked with us and helped guide that in terms of opportunities that we can put in place. The money that you folks provided is a wonderful help with that. I think at this point, we're talking through like in phases. So what can we say phase one will look like so that it's significant to be used, and then build on from that. So it's, money-wise, I think we have a really good start, but it is gonna take time.
Yeah, I think it's just a key element of your welcoming.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so we're working on that piece, and we actually, Dr. Henry and I were just chatting last week, came over to the school to walk through it and talk through it again, but really that's from you guys helping to guide through that, so I
know
appreciate that.
we're all excited about it.
Oh, good.
so.
Yay.
Have you spoken to Mark Bell on the town board?
No.
He is extremely interested
Yes,
in
Yes.
connecting the town and the schools with getting adaptive equipment in our school system. So
Cool.
he might be a really good contact for you.
Excellent, that's great, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
I love those, networking's great.
So, thank you.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it.
Approve them all at the end, at last time.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So this year was Stanford's 50th year anniversary. Our catchphrase is #StanfordStrong. As staff, we recognize the importance of respecting where we have come from and embrace both perceived good and bad, as well as seeking ways to support the current community we serve. As a school improvement team and leadership teams, we came to a consensus of 3 top priorities we needed in order to make the biggest impact and allow our community to continue to stand strong and understand that we are a community of learners and leaders. So our first area that we came across is we felt that we need to do a better job with effective planning and also lesson design. And in saying this, we will have an understanding of the different accommodations and interventions associated with the levels of tiered instruction. Core instruction will be strengthened through the use of best practices and instructional models that are effective for all students. The emphasis on planning lessons, we need to make sure that they are relevant, and I mean culturally, but also that they match exactly what our kids are experiencing and be engaged. Core teaching models will be demonstrated, and our instructional team support and coaches will play a vital role in modeling and providing resources and providing feedback to what is going on in the classrooms. Some areas that we will implement this year, we're gonna strengthen our core by implementing workshop model across all content areas. This is an area that we started last school year and we will continue. Just as Jeff said, the small group and being intentional so that we are teaching to where the student is and providing that feedback to the next step is very important to growth. Using assessment data to design lessons for our small groups and individual students. And one of the other ones I'll hit on is just implementing an organizational system to report, track, and monitor what intervention has been provided for students. And I know as a district, we're working on this with Progressive Matters and ETS's structure. But again, strengthening our core instruction by co-teaching experiences. and with instructional support teams across grade levels. And we want to continually provide PD and time for our teachers in this area. Our instructional expectations every week that will be presented to staff because we want that to remain our focus. An instructional team will create a structure and systems for school-wide intervention enrichment period. And this enrichment period, I think, is going to be special. We have yet to implement this, but we are taking in student choice as well as teacher choice or preference. And along, we've had surveys that allow students to provide their levels of understanding and what ways they learn best, which is going to be useful for teachers as they provide instruction. So our next area of focus is relationship building. We felt like we need to get back to basics with that. Our students are why we're there. And if we don't have solid relationships, it's all for naught. We will prioritize establishing and modeling meaningful and respectful relationships with our students and each other. We believe this will strengthen our culture and provide an effective, positive, supportive, and honest learning environment for our Charger community. Best practices, again, we want to see around our school for creating a welcoming and inclusive environment where students' needs are addressed while maintaining a high level of expectation and rigor. Disciplinary referrals and incidents we'd like to see decrease. And as both staff and students provide an environment that is conducive for optimal teaching and learning. Student growth and achievement will increase due to the use of MTSS guidelines and restorative practices, both, as Jeff mentioned, within instruction, but also as a way to have open discussions with our students to know where they are and where they need supports. We want to focus on respect, support, collaboration, honest communication and feedback, conflict resolution and problem solving. And again, not just for our students, but us as a staff. We can't expect something if we're not able to model it ourselves. Some action plans for that to ensure that we are continuing with relationships. We have a Charger Care team that is responsible for advocating for students, but also informing staff of factors that impact student behaviors and performance. We will coordinate mentor programs. We have parents, community groups, web leaders, that stands for Where Everyone Belongs, which is our 8th grade students, and our high school athletes or AVID students. For students, and we would like to incorporate them into our community to help those within the middle school system provide guidance. Another part I just mentioned, restorative practices, we want to see that used within our classrooms as we have classroom management and discipline infractions. And we also want to provide frequent opportunities for all staff to self-reflect in order to ensure that our practices are fair, relevant, explicit, and equitable. And our last area of focus, community. We have a community that we have a high school that is maybe 100 steps away. We have to take advantage of that. Building bridges, allowing those students who came through to be mentors for our students. We've tried that out with our band program. We've actually had the opportunity to play with the band and mixed at a home football game, and it was great for one parent to say, "This is the first time I'll ever see my children play together." And it's through AVID, we have some of the same programs. We have to utilize what we have right there. But as far as our community, all students and families will have access to ongoing and timely communication. And this includes parent conferences, and we want to emphasize face-to-face. A lot of times we can do phone calls and voicemails, but there's nothing like the face-to-face to get to see people's responses and truly get to see people, to know people and their heart, and vice versa. We want to create partnerships with our families and community in order to have a shared responsibility and accountability to uphold our expectations, opportunities, and support for all of our students. So I will say some of our action steps that I will hit on tonight. We'd like to provide activities and programs for parents at school to aid them in helping their child be successful and well-rounded individuals. Also, phone calls or postcards to strengthen relationships by contacting parents personally about their child's positive behavior and performance. It's not quite PBIS, but it's components of PBIS. Maintain communication with parents in a timely manner about their progress. And again, that parent face-to-face, we have a program we're calling it 5 for 5, where we like to meet with 5 families face-to-face each month for each team. And so as we looked at our data from last year, there were some things that stood out. We understand that we did not meet growth. And so knowing that, we know that we've got to continue to work hard. And it's unacceptable. I don't want to say it's unacceptable because I do know people are working hard, but it's unacceptable not to work hard together to try to figure this out. We can't just accept this is what it is. It has to be what else? What else can we do? So two of the areas I want to highlight today tonight is that we have a discrepancy between our minority students and their white counterparts. And this discrepancy is in discipline, in ISS and OSS, the numbers. And we also have a number of students who historically have multiple discipline incidents, we sometimes say our frequent flyers. But then also, there's over a 30% gap in proficiency levels in both reading and math. And so that's gonna take the work of all of us, because there are children, and monitor and discuss and implement individual support plans for students, these repeat offenders, as we implement MTSS, analyze discipline data. That's going to be one of our major focuses for this first year, and target specific areas of concerns, as well as ensure that school practices and policies are current, non-biased, and equitable. Ongoing professional development and opportunities for staff discourse related to providing equitable instructional and discipline practices. Again, engaging in that honest yet supportive discourse with staff who have frequent classroom management issues or frequent incidents with individual students. Another way is emphasis on providing engaging, relevant, and again, that culturally inclusive lesson plans, because all kids need to see their face and hear their story. Provide an increase in extracurricular activities that appeal to a variety of student interests and talents, in partnership with community organizations for mentoring. Right now, we will soon be partnering with the Kappas from Central, and student exposure and student service projects. One way of leadership, which I believe all of our students are leaders, is through service. And then again, we're going to target students to ensure additional opportunities for core content, meaning that double dip, that they're exposed more than once throughout the day. And ensuring that we have students that are purposefully exposed to that higher order thinking, meaning those higher clusters, as we say, making sure that they are exposed to and working with these students on a regular basis. Another area that I want to focus on, as a school, we did not make expected growth. So I talk about the proficiency levels between our Black and Hispanic students. with their white counterparts. However, when it comes to growth, we didn't make growth for our white students, AIG students, in the content of reading, but then also economically disadvantaged. So there's such a strong contrast there. We have a big gap with proficiency, but yet, I remember you at a student achievement meeting, we talked about the difference between the proficiency, but not exactly meeting that growth. So we really have to look at those practices and ensure that rigor is in place. And set up systems which are intervention time, acceleration will allow for that, but then also that goes back to our lesson design. AIG, teachers providing inclusive services in all content areas, not just following a cluster group. Also this year, we did at the beginning of the year is we looped our ELA teachers looking at our data, showed that reading we did not make growth. So in order for vertically for the teen ELA team, teachers looped up and then looped down in order to increase their rigor in the lower grades, but then also provide that support as the students are moving up in grade level, but they know the students and they know the content, and so that trajectory of learning is very important as well in ELA. So that is it for Stanford Middle School.
Dr. Alkios?
Leslie, are all your teaching positions filled with certified teachers?
No, I currently have an EC teacher that will start December 3rd, and I have an EC teacher that will is residency lateral entry, let's call it. And I have a half EC position that we have been unable to fill.
So you've got 2.5 EC positions.
Right now, we have an individual in there who's doing lateral entry. Yes, sir.
The other question is this.
And an assistant principal.
Okay. In your third point of charge your community, you talk about maintain communication with parents at the time of inappropriate student behavior or performance decline. How do you document the communication that you're using and whether or not it's been positive or negative with parents when kids are acting out or there's a decline in their academic performance? How do you document that stuff to show that you, people today are funny, you know? They want to see the effort you actually expended, not words. How do you track what you're proposing you're gonna be doing here? You're gonna be tracking it on a quarterly basis.
Well, our teachers have a document when they reach out to parents. When students are sent to choices, which is kind of a timeout period, not necessarily ISS, they have to contact parents. And honestly, that is easily recognized by administration when we call to follow up and a parent hasn't heard from us or from the school. So it's a conversation. And but then for performance decline or not meeting standards, our teachers, they just went through the data to see students who are non-proficient or failing in one or more grades, and those are the first people that we hit for our parent conferences.
Well, how do your guidance counselors work with your elementary feeder schools to highlight kids who are gonna need extra attention?
In the past, we have not had a watch list, but we incorporated that this past year. And it is very helpful just to see what the needs of students are. Not necessarily to label them or whatnot, but to see exactly what their needs are.
And you middle school folks can answer this question without fear of retribution because neither high school has a full-time principal right now, okay? They're all left. So let me ask you this. do the high school folks reach down to you all when you're getting ready to send them a crop of ninth graders to find out who needs extra attention?
Yes.
And you can document this.
Not this year, but next year I will, but talking with Will, yes, we have talked about students who are high flyers.
And the last thing was, administration will work collaboratively with our parent groups. What are the parent groups you're referencing then?
We have a character ed group
Okay.
that is sixth grade students, and we'd like to, grow that a little bit to meet with our 7th and 8th graders.
When does this group meet, if I may? Do you make it easy? Do you accommodate the needs of parents since most people work? So are they meeting at night? When do they meet?
When do they meet?
With
They
you
have
all?
with me? I
Yeah.
meet with, my PTSA, who, I meet with them every other week. But also from the PTSA, the parent group for the character ed, we are actually, my counselor works with them to set that up for the 6th grade counselor. And they just got done with their first, rotation.
Last thing I wanted to ask you was this. I found your statement that you guys are trying to find opportunities for staff to self-reflect. I don't know if it was me or the crazy world we lived in back in the old days. I found very few moments in my 30-plus years in this school system to self-reflect. There was always something going on all the time. If we didn't have something going on with construction, we had the central office coming up with some new plan, the superintendent had a new plan. So when do you make time to self-reflect? Do you self-reflect?
Every day, yes. But I think our staff meetings, if you don't set those times as a priority to stop, it's not a priority.
Well, I think it's important. That's why I'm highlighting this statement, because, you know, you can also substitute more religious sounding words for self-reflection. And it's all part of the same process. But taking time and pausing and bringing yourself back into focus, I think is critically important. Because if you can't come into the schoolhouse with a smile and you can't leave with a smile, I always said to folks, you shouldn't be here. It's a tough, demanding job. It wears you down. And you have to go in with a sense of happiness, because if you're not happy, the first people who know it are the kids. And then if they know you're not happy and they're not happy, you know what happens? Somebody's going to the office. Invariably, that's what happens. So I think capturing kids' hearts is the new modern day revelation by this guy with the fancy name. What's his name? Flippin'. Flippin', that's the name. Flippin', right? He came up with this, capturing kids' hearts. It takes time to capture kids' hearts, and you have to be sincere or you won't capture their little hearts. It's tough to capture a kid's heart. Thank you.
I just have a couple. What are the Kappas going to do?
We're going to try and do a mentoring group with the Kappas. Actually, my project lead, the way teacher is gonna help run that with the counselor.
Very good. So you mentioned self-reflection. When do teachers get a chance to self-reflect?
Again, in our staff meeting, we try to have an opportunity to, whether we read an article or we are throwing out questions or statements, and then in small groups, have an opportunity to think about it. But also doing activities that allow us to get to know each other on a personal level, but then also to be grateful, because a spirit of gratitude, we should and have that, and that helps for a more positive learning environment, when we see the good in people.
Just one more. So who's in that character ed group that you mentioned?
You mean the parents?
You said there was a character, you mentioned when you were talking about a character ed, I wrote character ed, sounds good. Who's in the one that you mentioned?
It started, and probably, sorry to put you in this one, but a few years ago, a 2 years ago, they wanted to provide support to the 6th grade at the time. And so together with the counselor, they've actually come up with a curriculum that works with the problem solving, conflict resolution, how to speak to people, to advocate for oneself. And so we run that through our social studies course in 6th grade. And they do a rotation, and then we'll do the next rotation for the winter.
Ms.
And I
Rob?
know you asked for parent groups. We also will have tea time or coffee time with the principal. And we also have small group sessions and panels, which includes our counselors with parents. And we like to put it where things that they're focusing on, where they can bring knowledge and information to a meeting, because it takes us all to support our kids in the many things that are going on in their worlds besides just science, social studies, language arts, and math. And so we will have several of those. And our PTSA is structured in a way that there's at the end, we have open session for questions for our administrators. And it's been very productive, I would say, this year.
Mr. Roberts?
Two questions. One's more of a comment. But we've heard several times about you reaching out to the elementary schools, and it's not just you, or to the high school. Are you giving feedback to the elementary schools on what your students that you have are coming in lacking?
I can't say necessarily that's been a practice. I can say we've grounded and implemented. I will say that this year, working with Mr. Witter, we've already put this in place, an opportunity for our AIG, our 6th grade math teachers, as well as their 5th grade and AIG, so that we have common language in regards to the expectations and the course components for math, because next year we will be moving to for no 6 plus.
The reason I bring it up, that having been in private industry in the receiving raw materials and then sending what the next facility considers raw material, we were very good about letting who we were receiving materials from, if they didn't meet our needs. And it may be time that we start having a discussion about that. Are our elementary schools preparing our students for middle school life? And the next point is that last week I had, and this is because I keep hearing the difference in discipline for different groups. I had the opportunity to actually have to keep time for a sports event last week, and it was amazing in how I perceived the game totally different when I'm just there as a spectator. Whereas when I was actually had ownership, I was part of that team, I was more involved. So at some point, how are we gonna get the students that are disciplined, we're having discipline issues, and I don't expect you to answer it, but we've got to figure out a way to get them to become part of the team. So that they, maybe we need a different club for a group of students, that we have to find out what they want to do. They may not be involved in sports, they may not be involved in some other club, but we've got to figure out something to get them involved in the team so that they will see it differently. Because I was just amazed how much different it was when I, instead of being a spectator, I was on the team, just keeping time, but I had to totally focus on the game.
Right, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, because everyone needs to feel like they are a part of and contribute to the strength of the team. And so that's why we are trying to incorporate different clubs, but then also the student survey that we've provided, it asks them about their interests so that we can use that data and provide an outlet even an outlet, but also an inlet into the community. And so, yes, we complete, and then, for discipline, we do have, reentry meetings, as the child returns, that goes over just their goals and plans, and what supports that they also need. But I agree with you that we've gotta make an environment that is welcoming for all students.
Okay. Can you explain the 5 for 5, and, you know, you're talking about this, a meeting with parents, and then my question will be, now, would those parents also be contacted with, when there's issues with discipline as well as performance? So how does that, can you give me an example how that works?
Right, so the 5 for 5 is, we want our teams 5 families per month, where you're seeing face to face, and that can include the student. So if we look at it as a triangle, the bottom tier is that any child that is performance has declined or behavior issues, they should get a phone call.
Okay.
Because I know as myself as a parent, I disliked it very much that at the end of the semester to hear everything that happened.
Right.
And so timely, because most parents wanna be part of that process. And most parents, wanna, just encourage positive behavior, but if they don't know anything about it, they can't do anything about it. So, and I think that goes back into community. If we're not engaging all parents, regardless if we fear or, you know, we don't wanna hear it's on the other side, they're also part of our community, and we've got to engage them. So the 5 for 5 again is just that goal to sit face to face. And we can do that in different ways, and we've been discussing that as leadership team sometimes.
Even visiting a home? Has that been a thought? An evening
Yes.
visit at parents' home? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hillary? Okay. Just a couple things. First, I think it's very important where you're acknowledging all of the challenges of not meeting growth and heading it on, you know, versus dancing around it. So I appreciate your putting that straight out there. Also, I liked, you know, the parent relationships, talking about positive behaviors and, you know, their performance versus just the discipline sides, because, you know, parents don't wanna hear that first, so. Two things that I was curious about is, you know, as, these students, as they become 6th grader, they start some emotional independence. You know, they're trying to assert their independence, and, you know, a couple of items you had in there was under the emotional states, about students will recognize their emotional states and ask for assistance. That ask for assistance, I think is kind of hard for them to do based off of fear and concern of how others. How do you plan on helping them to let them know it's okay, right? Because, you know, I just, you know, I've coached a lot of sports and, you know, have young kids, you know, and the kids just don't volunteer that. So I'm curious how, I think it's great, but how do you get them past that fear that, hey, I have a problem, I need to talk to somebody, versus teaching the staff, hey, sit down with this child and have a conversation and see what they're needing, and let's guide them through it. You know, the self-awareness is the one I'm curious your thoughts on.
Right, well, the new code of conduct, it talks about some key behaviors, and self-reflection or self-awareness is one of them. But number one, modeling. I think that the restorative practices are very important in this process, because becoming self-aware, that's hard. For
It
you.
is.
It's
It
hard
is.
for
It's hard for adults.
all of us.
It's hard for adults to
Um,
recognize they need help.
But I think that in this sense, it's knowing what type of learner you are and advocating for what you need in order to be successful. And so we've had sessions where we explicitly talk with our kids of how to respectfully advocate for oneself. And it's that ownership, that student agency of their education. And that can start in 6th grade. The character ed programs are important, but also our counselors do a great job of going into the classrooms and modeling this and providing lessons for SEL. But if that becomes part of our dialogue with our students, then they start to think that becomes what they think. So if we're consistent with that dialogue of what do you need, how can I assist you, what needs do you have, they're gonna start thinking of that. And we can start in 6th grade so that as they progress, it becomes a lifestyle, hopefully, for them.
Yeah, I think the way you explained it as being a conversation, I think makes a lot of sense. When I read it, it's like, are we gonna lose some kids waiting for them to ask? But based on what you said, that makes a lot of sense. The second one, or the last one I had, was refer students to appropriate resources. Can you, it's in the same, staff will be able to refer students to appropriate resources. What does the handoff of that look like, right? And again, it's in the same line. Hey, I really think you should go talk to Janet or Bob, and they're like, sure, thanks, I'll see you later. You know, how are we following up to make sure that we're leaning in to helping these kids? Because I worry referral is too soft for what kids need, right? It's not an easy conversation if they're at that point that they need a referral. So, anyway.
Well, within our weekly team PLC meetings, we discuss students. And so that's our agenda, is just about student concerns and the needs they have. And our counselors are there, our social worker is included, admin is included. And that way we're able to see what exactly are the needs of the students and what steps can we take. And then also with our charge of care team, where they're actually looking at perhaps some environmental factors that involve this child. You know, where can we best meet that need? Is it just a mentor check-in? Is it the Renaissance therapy? Therapy? Is it referring them to outside agencies? So, as far as teachers referring a student to a counselor, there's a referral system, and our counselors will respond back when they see that child, so that they know we're working on that. But again, I think it just takes communication, and the tracking of who's meeting with that child to meet their needs. And a lot of times it's not just one person, it's a collective effort, you know.
It takes a village.
Yeah, so, but yeah, I think that those weekly PLCs where we're just talking about student concerns are very powerful, because that's what's on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. That makes a lot of sense on the support systems. It just, the wording of it just made it feel like it's kind of a handoff. Here you go, you should talk. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before you leave, Will mentioned something about, you said the importance of restorative practices, and then the tense that's written here, it sounds like it's coming. You all are we doing restorative practices over at your school yet?
It is not school-wide. We have, I believe, restorative practices, there was a training several years ago. And there are some that do it very well, and then but it's not a consistent thing, so we need to focus on that, and we recognize that. So that's why it's the tense, because we're not yet there, but this is a goal that we need to take in order to meet the needs of our students.
Good, and I see it's regularly, which, all right, thanks, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, I'm Gwen Rolack, principal of Gravely Hill Middle School. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present some highlights from our 2019-2020 school improvement plan. This year we have 3 focus areas designed to help us meet and exceed growth. We are aware that we did not meet growth in the 2018-2019 school year. Even as we acknowledge that we have work to do to ensure that we meet and exceed growth this year, we are pleased that 4 of our subgroups, including Black students, multiracial students, English language learners, and students with disabilities met growth last year. Our school improvement plan consists of 3 focus areas, 2 of which are maintained from last year's school improvement plan, and 1 of which has been added this year. For focus area 1, Gravely will regularly look at school performance data and aggregated classroom observation data, and use that data to make decisions about school improvement and professional development needs. In reviewing the data this year, we reformed our master schedule such that all core classes are 63 minutes. This change was made to allow time for our 35-minute Grizzly growth, intervention, and enrichment block. The workshop model has been identified as a core instruction best practice framework, and we are encouraging and supporting our teachers in implementing this framework and the key features of the workshop model, including the warm-up, the mini lesson, independent work time, which includes conferring with individual and groups of students, and the debrief across all disciplines. Monthly faculty meetings this year are being utilized for professional development. All staff members are maintaining a professional development journal in which they reflect on their practice and professional growth monthly. Weekly professional learning community meetings are also used as needed for targeted professional development. For focus area 2, instructional teams will develop standards-aligned units of instruction for each subject and grade level. We decided to maintain this focus area from last year's plan. This year we want to continue to use our intranet page as the hub for sharing standards-aligned unit plans, as well as rigorous, differentiated, and engaging lesson plans. We are also continuing our school-wide focus on implementing literacy best practices across all disciplines. This year we decided to focus additionally on student engagement. All staff participated in professional development on motivating disengaged learners and will participate in ongoing professional development around this topic throughout the year. For focus area 3, Gravely implements a tiered instructional system that allows educators to deliver evidence-based instruction aligned with the individual needs of students across all tiers. At Gravely, we are doing the work to have a strong instructional core that supports students in meeting academic and behavioral expectations. At the same time, we are working to provide supplemental instruction and intervention for students who need more. Students have been assigned to Grizzly growth groups using a data-based decision-making protocol involving academic, discipline, and attendance data. This year, we asked all teachers to submit the names of the 5 most disengaged students in their classes. We have reviewed the submissions and have noted which students were listed by multiple teachers. These students will participate in what we're calling engagement interviews with a member of the instructional leadership team, wherein they are given the opportunity to discuss what motivates them, what they like about Gravely, what they'd like to change about Gravely, and what supports they need to be successful. We have implemented ROAR shout-outs, and ROAR stands for Respectful, On Task, Always Safe and Responsible. That's our PBIS acronym. These ROAR shout-outs are positive student recognitions. So instead of students being called to the administrator's office for misbehavior, students who receive a ROAR shout-out are called to the principal's or assistant principal's office to be recognized for their positive behavior. And their parents are informed of this positive recognition for their children. The engagement interviews and the ROAR shout-outs are 2 of the ways that we are working to strengthen relationships between students and faculty. At Gravely, we are not waiting until the end of the year to assess our progress. Rather, we are progress monitoring throughout the year so that we can problem solve around additional or alternate strategies that may be needed to help us meet our goals. Thank you again for the opportunity to share our plan with you, and I look forward to addressing your questions.
Dr. Arqueros?
Welcome.
Thank you.
How many teacher vacancies do you have right now?
So currently we have 5.
5.
2 of them I have submitted recommendations for, so our digital learning coach as well as an EC teacher position, and those folks will be starting soon. But we still have 3 that we need to fill. That's a science position, a math position, and our band position.
And you've got something that's ongoing right now to fill those 3 positions?
Right now we have long-term substitutes. We're very excited that the person who's in our band position has been a band director for several years, and is there working with students now on music, which is wonderful. We have long-term subs in the other two areas. One of them, for example, in the science classroom, is a 30-year Orange high school veteran teacher who's come back. So we're excited about the subs we have in place, but naturally we want to find the permanent teachers for our students.
You got a crackerjack math substitute there also, who retired from the school system at the secondary level.
Yes.
So tell me, disengaged students. I really like what you said there. You asked all your staff to write down on a card, I'm assuming,
They
five.
used a Google Doc.
Okay. See, I'm still thinking back 30 years ago, before Google was born. It was in Google land, okay? So they took the 5 disengaged, and you had some pretty relative consistency across the board. If they were disengaged in one teacher's class, they were obviously disengaged in another, or was some successful in other teachers.
It
So
was
how
a
do you
mixed
call
bag.
Okay, that mixed bag, how do you figure out, was it all the kids, or was it also some of the problems with the staff?
That's the problem-solving part. So today, for example, in our MTSS meeting, we reviewed that list. The list consists of about 80 students. So obviously, there were some students who were on the, right. There are some students who are on that list 4 times. So 4 individual teachers nominated a particular student. And then there are some students who are just on that list 1 time. And so we've looked at who submitted, the different names, and we're in the process of problem solving to try to find out, if there's a kid who's listed in all the classes, that's probably a very different need than a student who's just listed in one class. And then as a team, we'll be engaging in those interviews, and we'll come back with data to our next meeting to talk about what did we learn and what do we want to do to help that student re-engage in their education.
So historically, a lot of kids were told, you may have 5 teachers a day, and you're gonna have to adapt. You're gonna have to learn how to behave 5 different ways. So what are you all doing today? Is the adaptation expected from the kids, or is it expected from the staff?
So I met with a family this morning, and one of the things I said to them is that teaching is way different now than it was when even I started teaching. I said, when I was teaching back in the day, it was fairly teacher-focused, I think, in the sense that this was what was gonna happen and students needed to learn it.
Yep.
I told that family this morning that times have changed, and so now our job is to meet the needs of every individual student. And so it is very student-driven, and so when teachers come to the problem-solving team meetings, we are talking about what can we do to change our practice. Even in looking at our ISIL matrix issue, so we really wanna focus on instruction, curriculum, and environment. Not even so much the learner in specific right now, we wanna focus on what are the adults doing to make the necessary changes so that students can be successful.
That's important. Thank you.
I'm gonna follow up on the targeted group also, because that was what I was hitting on, trying to figure out what we're gonna do to make that group of students part of the team, so they want to be part of it, so I appreciate you doing that. The second one is that you had a very specific goal on referrals. I like that. It is measurable. It'd be interesting to see if but it was very, 10%. I remember that. So it's very measurable, thank you. The other one on the students, identifying target students for tutoring, March, is that soon enough?
It is not, and it seems like you all were at our MTSS meeting today, because we talked about that today. I was speaking with our AIG specialist, and I said, I don't think we can wait until, we usually would set that money aside and use it right before end of grade assessments. And in consideration of the needs that we're already seeing, she and I talked today, and it was in the MTSS meeting, but she and I were really the ones engaging that conversation around, we think we're gonna need to do it sooner. And she would be one of the tutors, which is why I was talking specifically with her about how can we go ahead and start supporting students now so that we're not waiting until the month or 2 months before EOGs.
Okay, that's positive. Okay. That's it.
I was really excited when I looked here and saw that you're actually looking at other districts in regards to how they're actually, having high growth within their school. But my only question was in regards to looking at that, the demographics and the population, are they pretty much the same, or are they different?
The demographics are pretty similar for the middle school that we visited last year, and we chose that middle school because the demographics were pretty similar, and obviously because they were right nearby. It was just one
Right.
county over. And so this year what we're doing is we're using, like, we took copious notes during our visit there. We're looking back through those notes and seeing what are the things that we can implement at Gravely, but we also realize there are some things that just do not fit Gravely, that fit the other middle school wonderfully. So we are picking and choosing the pieces that we want to implement in our school.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? All right, I just had a couple. So thank you for your detailed data with lots of great measurements on there, you know, including your subgroup data and your actions for that. I think it's very crucial to have that reflection. And the one I wanted to highlight was I was very pleased to see you've got the college and career readiness, that you're having those conversations, you know, having that, especially, I think I've mentioned this multiple times, is, you know, graduation, when you're looking at where kids are going, they don't all say college. The majority of them don't. They say they're going straight to a career. They say they're going to go to a community college. Many of them were out of state, you know, so having this conversation as early as possible is so important for them to start thinking. They're not gonna choose, but at least they're thinking about it. So thank you for thinking through that.
Absolutely. My background is as a school counselor, so it just feels very natural to be thinking about college and career readiness for all students. And we're very excited. We have a few students this year who have signed up to participate in Movement of Youth, which is a college access organization that I worked with in a previous school district that I definitely want to get, you know, even more, you know, entrenched in working with kids at Gravely. We also have a group of students, male students, who are going to be traveling to UNC Chapel Hill in the spring to meet with some college students there and hopefully get their minds thinking about their next steps after high school.
And they'll talk to other kids and tell
I
them
hope
about it.
so.
That's perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nice to see everyone. Thank you for having me. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Bridges and Mr. Johnson for giving me this opportunity to give up my afternoon naps. I'm a little disappointed this evening because I had asked my friend Ann Purcell to join me in presenting this as an interpretive dance. She declined. So I have spent 5 weeks now at Cedar Ridge, and thank you for the opportunity to work there. It's a terrific school, great staff. We talked as a group in the beginning, as soon as I got there, about the needs of the school and what the teachers said that they wanted. And what they wanted was some organization to the decision-making process and the budgeting and how professional development is determined and decided. So we've teased out the responsibilities into the two groups, department heads and the school improvement team. So the school improvement team is now charged with the school improvement plan and ensuring that we meet our goals as we progress through the school year. The budget belongs to the teachers, and so what I have done is given the entire budget to the department heads, and they have budgeted by bringing proposals back to the group and discussed its impact on students. And so we've finalized our budget at the last department head meeting, and so we'll continue from there. The other is communication from me to the teachers in the school, building trust both within the school and without. So we are, we have a weekly note that goes out now from me to the staff every Sunday. Kind of outlines successes from the previous weeks, or previous week, what to focus on for the upcoming week, and then events for this week and the next. The same sort of message goes to the students and then to the homes. One thing I noted, the home communication consisted exclusively of emails and text messages. In the past, currently. One is EC. We had a candidate, but the candidate pulled out Friday after the news broke, unfortunately. And we have another position that just came vacant Thursday, which is PE and athletic trainer. Actually, it's athletic trainer first and PE second. In our disaggregated data, we took a look at where Cedar Ridge is not met, and they have met or exceeded. But African American students in particular have a downward trend over the past 3 years, and in biology in particular, which was quite interesting. So we've developed some strategies through the biology teachers to help those kids be successful this year.
Tony?
So what are you putting in place for those African-American students that are below average, so to speak? What type things are you putting in place?
So what the teachers have spoken to me about that they are trying this year are more, and this is sort of an intangible and non-measurable. When students hit a roadblock, that hurdle, those kids who aren't equipped to get over that hurdle need something else. Meeting with a parent, more time in the tutoring sessions, something beyond what's going on in the classroom. So those are the kinds of strategies that the teachers have spoken of.
Dr. Arqueos?
So I'm looking at this, and this is a pretty powerful statement. African-American students in biology dropped markedly 2018, 2019. Now, dropped markedly. What is the sense from your biology teachers that this was a remarkable drop?
In the performance data
Yeah,
itself?
yeah.
I think I remember it being like in the 15-point drop.
But what did they think was the
Comparative.
reason for that?
They didn't have a specific. So, one thing to point to. And this may be my remiss.
Well, I would hope they go back and take a look at that, because, you know, several years ago, we saw some interesting data with respect to, I believe it was latter years of middle school, early years of high school, where Hispanic kids weren't doing that great in science-based courses. But once they got the English language under control, their science grades went up. And it was kind of interesting to watch that phenomenon. So my contention is something happened. I recall vividly, for those of us who've been on this board for a few years, Ms. Stevens, Mr. McKnight, and myself, we had a similar thing happen with the number of students enrolled in the IB program, the International Baccalaureate program in Cedar Ridge. And it all came down to leadership of the program. The leadership went off on maternity leave, and the person filling in just couldn't deal with it. And there was a market drop. As soon as that other director person came back, it went right back up again. So I think, I would say to you, I know you're there on an interim basis, but this would be an interesting question for people to probe and find out what are possible reasons for. Something's gotta be behind this. If it's the same material being taught by the same people, there's gotta be a reason for a marked drop. If you're talking 15 points, that's pretty significant. And I would hope they would continue to explore that, to see what's going on. And you know, and I think it's great to look at these strategies, requiring kids to be tutored, increase student confidence by chunking information and using frequent check-ins, increase the number of learning activities that include hands-on with manipulatives, and develop stronger learning relationship with kids. I think all of that stuff is nice. The bottom line is, why did this happen? And then that may offer you an opportunity to figure out some other strategies that heretofore weren't looked at before. I just think there's gotta be a reason for that.
Well, and to your point, sir, I would find out, and I will find out, who taught it and where are they now.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody?
So one other thing, you intrigued me by telling me you turned over the school budget to the department chairs / teachers, what have you. How do you think that's gonna work out? In your past experience, that's worked out pretty well?
Yes. They're normally the first go-round, people are surprised, and so they come back to the table with enormous budget requests. So when we total it all up, it ends up to be twice what the amount is. They were actually under the amount, which I was surprised.
Good.
And they discuss why they're asking, as a group, why they're asking for this amount of money, how it will impact student learning. I think it's a very powerful way to budget.
So are there any specific items y'all are working on for the IB program?
No, sir.
It's just across the whole school, it doesn't matter which program you're in?
I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Whether you're just, I guess a different way to say it, if you're in the IB program, right, you're not district in IB, you've chosen to be in IB,
Right.
and then you have your normal school that's running at the same time. These programs are just going to be across all of the programs?
Yes, so
Okay.
like the communication applies to all parents,
Mhm.
so IB parents in addition to every group.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say publicly, I wanted to thank you and Dr. Bridges, and I want to thank the young student and the mom and Sheriff Blackwood for acting quickly and swiftly on the situation you had last week. And all I've seen is nothing but praise.
Yes.
Especially on social media, okay? And people just saying, you know, thank God they reacted that way and did it quickly. But I think a lot of praise needs to go to the young person too, who reported it to his mother. To me, that was heartwarming, okay? That was heartwarming, and she had enough sense to go ahead and contact law enforcement.
And I had spoken with Dr. Bridges too, and also I called the sheriff today to say
Yeah.
the same.
You guys were all over it, you deserve a lot of praise for that. That's the way this stuff needs to be handled,
And-
swiftly and cleanly.
And the communications was very well received. They were informed, they understood what was going on, they understood what actions were being taken. I mean, it's the simple stuff, making sure everybody understands.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me to be back here to do this yet one more time.
We do have a position open.
Thank you for
Do
doing
what?
that.
We do have a position open. if
I've
you
already
need it.
asked her about that.
I didn't know. Okay, if you look at this plan and you look at the plans at Orange High School previously, which I'm sure you have, this one is very similar to what they had before. And we had a long conversation with, I had a long conversation with the school improvement team about where they wanted to go, because I was stepping into something that was brand new and, hadn't done a year, and I didn't really know where they were. And so, after that conversation, they said that they really felt that they had not accomplished as much as they wanted to last year and the year before with that plan, and they'd like to stick to some of the things that they had done in that plan and carry on to try to reach some of their goals. And it all circles around instruction. Everything that you see here really is looking at the whole child to come back to that piece of instruction that is what we're there for. And the first section is the tiered instruction that allows the teachers to deliver evidence-based instruction aligned with individual needs of students across all tiers. And we use the formative assessments, we have the PLC watch list, and yes, Dr. Halkiotis, I, as a middle school principal, reached out to elementary principals, and I, as an interim at Orange High School, reached out to the middle schools. I didn't talk to Leslie. I know Will talked to Leslie. I talked to Ron. I also talked to Chris Gammon at the high school, at Bradley, before he left. And I came up with, between Will and I, we had a watch list, which we still have and are still using. So yes, that is something that we do, plus the fact that I know a large majority of the students at Orange because they were students of mine at Stanford. So I know some of the frequent flyers and students that are going to need extra help with various and sundry things. Tutorials, we are still doing our Plus Lunch. I'm not there to change things a lot, but I think Plus Lunch needs a little revving up to get the students in there that really need to be going for the tutorials during Plus Lunch, because I'm seeing a lot of students who are avoiding going to tutoring if they can get out of it. So that's something that we need to talk about as a school improvement team. We have a student support team that is a principal or an assistant principal, the social worker, and the counselor. For that, I have the section that is L through something. And so we have those students that we work with. And we not only talk about the students and what they might need, but we also talk about the students if they have improved in various and sundry things. So we're trying to look at the whole child and what they're doing. We have a freshman literacy class, and we're gonna have to add another one second semester because we have students that are lagging behind in reading and writing, and so we have 30 students in that class right now for second semester, and decided last week that we need another section, because we're gonna need it. And the smaller it can be, the better for reading and writing anyway. So we're gonna, do away with something and put that in its place. Our social worker is a big part of everything that we do in working with students that might need some extra help, especially if we have some mental health issues. And that goes with the second section, that all our teachers are attentive to students' emotional states, guide students in managing their emotions, and arrange for supports and interventions. And we had 40 students that were seeing the one therapist that was at Orange. And we have just been given another therapist to bring in. So we will have 2 therapists that are there, and we can divide those children up, plus she will add some more to the list. And our social worker is very much involved. Everything goes through her. If, for instance, I had a student that a parent came to me and said, I want them to see somebody. And so I talked with them about a therapist, and they said yes. And so I went to the social worker. She does the process of getting them in to see the therapist. And that all goes back. If there are issues going on and we can't teach them, if we can't take care of those needs. Our counselors do some individual and small group counseling, and teachers will counsel with students. I will counsel with students. We all will work with the students and try to help them with whatever bumps in the road they're having. The school regularly communicates with parents, and this was one that the teachers brought up, and it was, we don't do enough reaching out to parents, and we need to do more. And so they decided that they would, each teacher would send at least 2 emails home per semester, if not more, if they could. And it didn't always have to be about so-and-so's not doing well, it's so-and-so is doing so well in my class, I just wanted you to know. Of course, the weekly principal messages go home. We're using the OHS app, Power School. And then if we need to visit with parents, our social worker and counselors will go out and do home visits. And the social worker I have is very good about going out and visiting with parents or tracking parents down if she needs to for whatever reason. Areas of concern that we talked about were our African American population lagging behind the white and Hispanic counterparts in reading especially. And that is one thing that we have talked about doing with the Plus Lunch, with before-school, after-school tutoring. It is also something that teachers are working with the inclusion teachers on, because many times these students are students that are in the EC program, and it's really getting the inclusion teacher more involved. But it also is limited to English classes and math classes. And where we're seeing that they need some extra help is science and social studies as well, because it all comes back to reading. And so we're trying to figure out, with the number of people that we have, how we could possibly do something to get into science and social studies. And so far, we've not been real successful with that, but we're working on that. Our college and career ready coach, Mr. Montgomery, is going to work with some of our African American students and bring them in and start talking about college, start talking about things they can do after school, when they get through with school, setting goals to get through school, and just be a positive role for these students to see that, yeah, when you get out of school, you may be having some issues right now, but when you get out of school, and if you do what you're supposed to do in school and can learn all you can learn, there is places for you to go and things that you can do when you get out of high school. And we want them to see that. The whole guidance department does a great job of bringing people in to talk to students, whether it's universities or community colleges or whatever. They do a really good job of bringing them in to talk with them. So we're going to have a little bit more concerted effort on getting students that might not be thinking about college, get them in and talk to them and set some goals with them. So that's the short version in a nutshell. Any questions?
Dr. Hayes?
So you have any teacher vacancies?
I have two that just, one opened up about 3 weeks ago, and the other one just opened up this past week.
In what areas?
One is Family and Consumer Science, Foods 1 and 2, and the other one is ESL. I had a person that I thought was gonna take the Foods 1 and 2, but when she realized, she was ready to come out of retirement. She's a super teacher. She has done a lot of subbing at Orange, and she got to looking at the money issues and found out that she was gonna be losing about $300 a month. So she called me today and said, not gonna do it. So I'm back to square one on that. So, but she is gonna fill in as a substitute 4 days a week, while I'm looking for a teacher.
So forgive this next question if it sounds antiquated, because.
Well, I'm antiquated.
Well, so am I, but that's why I'm asking it this way. So you remember years ago, we used to send out progress reports.
Yes, we do.
They were printed up here in major business forms. They had about 6 NCR pages long. And it was a nightmare. There were tons of those things all over the place.
Why don't you
Teachers were-
get home?
Well, yeah, because if you expected the kid to take it home, you needed help
Yeah.
as an adult. That wasn't gonna happen. So what's the most effective way you have found to deal with parents, to get communication to parents that's not intercepted or diverted by their own children?
Pick up the phone and give
Pick
them
up the
a phone
phone.
call, or send them an email, or put something on Power School, because most parents are looking at Power School, and
So
you can-
the parents, what's the percentage of parents, would you say, are going to Power School to look at this stuff? And I think those are great things.
I don't know. Just about every parent I talk to says, well, I saw on Power School, and they whatever.
So you feel that the parents
and I saw
are
it in
at least,
middle school too.
are at least up to speed with keeping up with their kids with the technology? No,
Yes.
maybe not,
Some of them are.
okay, so you're qualified.
Not
then,
100%, no.
So then there's significant amount of diversion still taking place.
Probably.
Because you just mentioned, if you can't get them to come in for required tutorials at Smart Lunch, and then you're dealing with a new code of conduct, you can't punish them for not coming in to a tutorial, but how do you induce them to come into a tutorial? If they show up for so many tutorials, can you give them one free admission to an athletic event? We did that in the past.
That's
Okay.
a possibility.
What kinds of things can you guys come, you don't have to do it tonight, but I'm just asking, this will be applicable to everybody, okay? how do you get kids to come in, to wanna come in to a tutorial?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it depends on the teacher and the relationship they have with the teacher. If they've got a really good relationship with that teacher and feel comfortable with that teacher, they'll give up 30 minutes of their lunch and go in there. If we have had a conversation with the parent and a child, either in the counseling office or principals, assistant principals, one-on-one, talking about this is what the grades are, where do you wanna go, looking at the whole big picture, sometimes that will send a child in, especially with parents pushing it home. And a lot of this has to take place at home too. We can't do it all. It's gotta be a two-way street here. But I'm really impressed with the counselors and the teachers at Orange in trying to get kids to come and take advantage of the things that are offered for them.
Well, and I will say this, in 1973, there were 2 Title I reading teachers at Orange High School, the first year I taught there. And if you're not skilled in reading, how in God's name are you gonna handle anything else?
Well, I would love to have a reading teacher at Orange High right now, because all we have are our English.
Well, I'm just putting that out there because the needs are real. But the hope is this, I was invited to attend and speak at 2 reunions this past Saturday night. A 30-year reunion in Burlington, a 20-year reunion in Durham. So the progress of America does not rest on a 17 and 18-year-old. It rests on those 17 and 18-year-olds who become 28, 38, and 48 in some cases. And 2 weeks ago was a 40-year reunion. They've turned into marvelous human beings. And now some of them are pulling their hair out with their own kids. And I reminded them that some of us were pulling our hair out with them. So what goes around comes around, but by and large, they all turned out wonderful.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the power schools. You don't have to go look into it. Once you sign in, you just check the box, and at 12:20 a.m. on Monday, you get a complete list of absentees, what their scores were, homework, and I know for my kids, if something's gonna be in there, we have a conversation before I see it.
That's wonderful.
So, it's a wonderful thing, if you have access to it. Any other questions?
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. for all
Come
that
see
you
me
do
at
for
Orange.
us.
I'll walk you around.
I know you will.
It's an action item, Mr. Chairman.
We're not done.
Stan.
We're not done. We're on it.
Stan's up here.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. We got enough. Stand-
Sorry, buddy.
Trying to miss the brother.
We trying to what?
Yeah.
We got you. Turn into the first chapter of
Yes.
board meeting.
We need them.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone this morning?
Good
This evening. Good. It's all running together on us. I first of all would like to say that I am Stan Farrington, the principal, the proud principal of the 3rd high school here in Orange County.
Amen.
And I know that we have 2 interims who are here and doing a fantastic job, because the other 2 have left their position, but I don't plan to relinquish mine anytime soon. I
All
just
right.
want to make
That's good to
that
hear.
known.
Speaking the truth.
Speak the truth
We
about it.
got to do.
The plan is keep it going and keep it going in a positive direction. The second thing, though, I'm really pleased to announce is that Partnership Academy received the top rating of progressing according to the North Carolina Alternative Schools Accountability Progress Model. And this rating basically indicates that significant growth compared to previous years that we've been looked at and assessed. So all North Carolina alternative schools will be given a change rating or a growth rating of either progressing, maintaining, or declining. And fortunately, right now, we're sitting at the top with progressing. Last year, we ended the year with a 91% persistence rate, which is basically keeping students enrolled in school and reducing dropout numbers. And I just want to do a quick commercial and say that we can improve that number if we can expand our facility, and I'll leave it right there. All right. I would say that consistently 2/3 of our students are graduating within 4 years of high school, and I think that's big time for an alternative school, and I don't know that there are many alternative schools in the state that can say that, high schools anyway. So I just wanted to make that known, and I think we can improve that, and we'll continue to work in that direction. And so in an effort to keep things going in that positive direction, we're focusing on 3 major goals for our school improvement plan. The first goal really focuses on student achievement and says the school will implement a tiered instructional system that allows teachers to deliver evidence-based instruction aligned with the individual needs of students across all tiers. And we like that idea because it's giving staff the opportunity to attend professional training designed to help teachers integrate the newest findings about what works for students and connect with their fellow teachers and sort through challenges and even boost morale and commitment of the students. And so we want to see the teachers show an improved ability to connect with students and make learning meaningful. And when we make the learning meaningful, that's how I hurt my foot. I was actually kicking out apathy, kicking it out of there. It's got to go. So I won't get in there too long, but yeah, looks like apathy got the best of it. I'm still kicking it. I'm still kicking it. I got a big lick on it though, I tell you that, and we're working on getting rid of it. Our second goal focuses on social emotional learning, and all teachers will be attentive to students' emotional states and guide students in managing their emotions and arrange for students for supports and interventions when necessary. And basically what we're going to focus on right there is students developing interpersonal skills and basic coping skills to successfully navigate challenges while learning the academic skills required for success in post-secondary education and employment. So the third one we really chose to focus on is that really I'll sum it up with data, culture, and climate. And that's Partnership Academy will regularly look at school performance data and aggregated classroom observation data and use that data to make decisions about school improvement and professional development needs. So we're doing several things in that area, but one of the things that we just started doing this year, and we probably should have been doing it all along, but we've begun pulling testing data of all the way back to kindergarten. So we can see, okay, has this kid ever made a 2 on a test? And we have several that have just been straight 1s. That speaks volumes. It speaks volumes. But we're gonna fix some of those 1s because we're gonna turn the 1s to 2s and the 2s to 3s and the 3s to, I don't even know what it is now. They changed it to 5s or something, I don't even know. But we're going up, in other words, we're going up. And so I just wanted to make sure that we focus on that. We're also paying some really close attention to discipline data. We mentioned in there that we're gonna reduce it by at least 10%. And I can say right now, at this point, compared to last year, we're down significantly, over 10%, and so we're well on our way to accomplishing that goal. We've got some exciting things coming up, but parent engagement and perception data we're going to be looking at. November 5th, we have a parent night. It's a free spaghetti dinner. You guys are welcome to come out. We've got a parent, a community advocate that's donating the dinner to our students, coming and preparing it, cooking it, coming to help serve it. And it's a report card pickup night. It's also a parent survey night, and it's also a financial aid information night for students that are trying to move on to community college or college. So a lot of information is going to be passed out that night, and we're feeding them for free. So that's a pretty good thing. We expect a good turnout. But we're going to find out what the parents' needs are. So a parent engagement survey as well as perception data. What they think about partnership. What are the problems that we can fine tune the areas that we maybe don't even think about. Get their ideas. Monitor, track discipline data as well as student achievement and attendance. Sometimes when a student is a little apathetic and hasn't experienced a whole lot of success in the school system, attendance struggles. So we want to make sure that we're meeting them there, meeting them where they are, and then bringing them along to be successful. And so with that in mind, you know, you know, they've been told there aren't anything, but we're asking them to step out of your estimate and step into your essence. Become who you were meant to be, and we're gonna help them do that. Any questions?
Okay,
I just got a comment.
Yes.
You not only have a fire in your belly, you got heartburn at the same time. You've got a fire in your stand, and that's what you gotta have. You've got there's been an interesting evolution of partnership. Originally, it was set up for a state mandate as an alternative to out-of-school suspension. Partnership has evolved into a choice high school where, on a much smaller scale, of course, than Cedar Ridge and Orange High, but a much more intimate, much more family style of schooling, secondary schooling. And you've got a sense of family at your place. And you have brought a new sense of family to that place. You brought enthusiasm there, okay? And I'll just say this, you know me, I'm gonna say what I feel like saying. It was lacking for a long time in the leadership. You brought enthusiasm to that place. It's almost infectious, okay? Because hanging around you, people have to become infused, okay?
Well, thank you, sir.
Because of your presence. You've got a presence about you. Some people can walk in a room, nobody notices. You walk in a room, everybody sees you there. So how many students you have right now?
We have 36. We do have a waiting list, but we're on hold right now with that 36.
Well, and I think that's another important thing that this board should discuss down the road is how we can nurture and grow Partnership Academy. And I want to say this to all the high school people. I've been to just about every summer school graduation since I've been on this board, and prior to that also. I want to make sure we've got enough graduation robes in your closet at your school for kids who can't afford a graduation robe.
Thank you.
That come to summer school, and I watched last summer, some kids did not have the right stuff, okay? Look, we need to preserve the sense of respect and dignity right down to the last minute when we hand a kid a diploma. Those things are not that expensive, and this school system can find a couple of bucks, okay, to make sure each of the schools has that wardrobe necessary, that each kid feels complete. It pains me to see stuff like that, okay? And we should not do that. You guys and your staff and that wonderful office person you got over there, what's her name?
Miss Cates.
Miss Cates is like Mother Earth, okay? If you never knew your mom, go over to Partnership and she will become your mother, okay? That's the kind of woman she is. She's wonderful. And I watched her at your graduation last year. And I gotta tell you, these kids love her.
Yeah.
They love her because you know why? She loves them.
That's the key.
And the key to success of these kids is, see, you attach kids. They get attached to you guys because they know you care about them.
That's it.
And where they came from, they felt they were disillusioned, they were lost, but they found a home and Partnership. So I think also, Mr. Roberts, you might want to write this down. You're the chair of the Budget Committee. A discussion on what it would take with Dr. Henry to look at an expansion of Partnership. Or maybe what we need to do is talk about moving Partnership to the Corporate Drive facility, right? So there's all kinds of options, okay?
They need a gym, they need
Yeah.
an area to go out and
Yeah,
be out in
there's
the
a nice
open and not be
$2
out in the
gym over
street,
there.
and a place to eat a meal.
Yeah, so anyway,
That's yours.
I'm just putting that on the
Absolutely.
table because it's also part of the Budget Committee.
Oh, no, that one's on there. We've had that discussion.
Yeah, we already had that.
I'm saying it
And
because
it
we've got a
needs to
new
get back-
superintendent
and it
sitting in
has
the
to-
back
yeah.
and she's writing the stuff down.
That one needs to be written down. But
So
Bob,
thanks to all of you for what you do over there day in and day out, for all
Absolutely.
those children.
Thank you.
You're still having your Thanksgiving luncheon this year too?
We are. We're gonna still do the Thanksgiving luncheon. We got some neat things planned. I'm just excited about the team, and I will answer A question that I know you asked a few folks, but we are fully staffed.
I know.
That's the first thing in a while, and
I
I'm
was
telling
getting
you,
ready to
with
ask that.
with some high quality, I mean, they are masters of their crafts. They care about kids,
I know.
and they also know the curriculum. And it's amazing the difference that the two combined makes.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, it's relationships and it's rigor. And you put it together, you can't help but win.
And then it's fire and hot.
That's right, fire, fire and enthusiasm, that's right.
Mr. Roberts?
Questions?
Mine's more of a comment, and this was kind of going away, knowing who's here tonight so that they can start focusing on it. One thing that you said, is real, and it's not that, it's good, that you went all the way back as far as you could on a student and said, hey, this child hasn't got anything above a 1 before they came to you.
That's correct.
That's too late.
Thank you, sir. I'll have to
Absolutely.
say, Reverend Barry, you
Okay.
persevered.
All right.
I know you have worked really hard, and regardless of anything that transpired, it's clear that, you have risen to the top, and thank you so much for what you do and what you've been doing over the partnership and your staff.
Bless you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And I just have a couple.
Sure.
Like everybody said, partnership is successful because of your leadership.
That's right.
Your everyday commitment, your patience, your caring, your engagement for those students, it matters and it shows. It was a wonderful experience for me to have to be fortunate to sit through y'all's graduation with several of the other board members and just hear, a personal graduation. Not a name called out, there was a personal experience, seeing those families, how engaged they were, hearing about their experience. It's a wonderful, successful program. The two questions I had for you is, how many kids are on your waiting list?
We have 5 sitting on the waiting list right now, but, yes.
I'm gonna follow up on that.
I'm gonna,
That you and I have talked about
Yes.
whether or not it should be expanded to middle school, that, similar to that, we can't get it too large.
Right.
But the small part of it, but this is where I'm saying, sometimes it's too late waiting for this. So we need to have the discussion, it may not be at the very beginning, but we need to have a discussion of how open do we want it and at what age.
The last question I have is, when's the spaghetti dinner?
Yes,
No.
that was.
Yeah, okay, all right, great, it's November 5th, that's
November 5th.
Tuesday night, yes. I think
election
the
night.
time is,
That's
we're,
election night.
is that election night?
It is.
I do apologize.
They'll have plates to go.
That's right.
Yeah, you
Go,
can have to
go,
go.
plates to go.
You guys are welcome, though. Vote, wear your sticker on, come on in.
That's right, you wear your
Yes,
sticker, you get a
indeed.
plate.
Yes, we'll encourage parents to go vote, absolutely. So, yes, so that's the night of it, and we'd love to see any and all of you.
What time does it start?
5 o'clock.
Ooh,
Okay.
what time does it end?
Well, we're gonna keep the doors open till 7.
Okay then.
So, yeah, we'll probably start eating about 5:30.
All right.
Save a couple of plates.
Save a couple plates, there we go. That's indeed, that's indeed.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
all right.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the
Second.
school improvement plans.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I got somewhere to be early in the morning. Got to open the poll.